Welcome back to Jawa Recaps. Today, we're diving into the blood-chilling horror called Salem's Lot 2024. When a writer returns to his hometown in search of inspiration, he discovers that the town is falling under the grip of an ancient evil. As night falls, the shadows grow stronger, and soon, the residents realize they're fighting for far more than their souls. The story begins with a mysterious man talking to the owner of a transportation service, asking him to transport a very heavy box to the old Marston house, then take it down to the basement and place it there with great care. A few hours later, two employees of the service deliver the box to the mysterious house, which is known to harbor the evil of its former owner. Without wasting time, the men load the package and slowly unload it. However, due to carelessness, one of them drops it, breaking it in the process and revealing that it was filled with dirt. The men decide to leave without saying anything, but before closing the hatch, they see something. A few days later, a writer named Ben Mears returns to the town of Jerusalem's Lot with a specific goal in mind: to regain the inspiration to continue writing. He returns because he had lived there as a child. The man heads to a local hotel where, in addition to asking if they had any available rooms, he also inquires whether the Marston house was uninhabited. The hotel clerk responds that it is, but mentions that an eccentric European, who is about to open an antique shop across the street, has bought the house. After this, we are introduced to a group of local children. Among them, the standouts are Homelander's son, who is still a little boy here, and the new kid in town named Mark, who quickly takes down a bully, showing that he's a tough guy. While in the library, a local girl named Susan, a fan of Ben Mears' books, subtly informs him that she plans to go to the cinema that afternoon, hoping to see him there. At the same time, Homelander's son and his little brother, Ralph, are heading back home just before nightfall. In a mysterious and creepy turn of events, the European antique shop owner appears and offers them a ride. Suspicious of the man, they decline, telling him to get lost. The kids then walk through the woods, trying to take a shortcut, but unfortunately, the European man reappears from behind and takes Ralph away, leaving the other boy, Ryan, all alone. The man brings the child to the Marston house, shouting, "Master Barlow, Lord of the Lies, I bring you a sacrifice for your delight." As a creature, clearly a vampire, proceeds to take the boy's life. A week later, despite exhaustive searches carried out by the townspeople, Ralph is still missing. Adding to the complexity, Ryan can't fully remember what happened that night. Things look grim. That same night, Ryan hears someone in his backyard. Thinking it might be Ralph, he goes outside to see what's happening, only to find Ralph's harmonica lying on the ground. When a shadow starts to move, he concludes that Ralph had returned. But, incredibly, the boy survives this encounter, although he is admitted to the hospital because his platelet count keeps dropping despite receiving constant blood transfusions. The boy wakes up almost miraculously and starts drinking blood hurriedly, but within seconds, he goes completely stiff. As expected, the boy is buried by his family in the cemetery, but conveniently, the gravedigger falls asleep. Since no one bothered to talk to him, and no one found it strange that the coffin was left exposed, the guy resumes his job when he wakes up hours later. What the poor fool didn't know was that Ryan had just reanimated, leading to the inevitable. After a long day of work, the school principal heads to a local bar to get drunk and forget his problems. Strangely, he notices the gravedigger, who was attacked by Ryan, sitting in the shadows, passing the time. The principal approaches to ask if he's okay, as seeing him in a place like that was unusual. The young man reveals that after Ryan's funeral, he seems to have fainted and doesn't remember anything except for some red eyes, though he can't recall where he saw them. Concerned, the principal invites him to stay at his house. Before going to bed, the man notices 2 marks on the boy's neck, and if that wasn't enough evidence that something strange was happening, after hearing strange noises outside his house, he realizes that the boy had gone out to hunt and returned minutes later. With no one else to turn to, the principal goes straight to Ben Mears, who, by the way, was busy having some fun with Susan. After telling him what had happened, the principal insists that Ben see it for himself. When they arrive at the principal's house, they find the gravedigger lying in bed, literally cold, and the neck marks had disappeared. Although it's hard to believe the principal, the writer suggests they inform the police. The coroner arrives minutes later to confirm the death, believing the man had died from pernicious anemia, which is practically the same thing that happened to Homelander's son, although the coroner doesn't think there's a connection between the two cases. The situation is, at the very least, curious. At the same time, but over at Mark's house in the early morning, he hears Ryan's voice in his sleep. To his surprise, Ryan is actually flying outside his window. The boy uses his vampire powers to hypnotize Mark and makes him open the window to let him in. But when he gets really close, Mark reacts just in time and presses across to his face, making the vampire flee. From that moment, Mark decides to help Ryan return to normal, and to do so, he searches for vampire weaknesses in comic books. The boy discovers the usual: crosses repel them, sunlight hurts them, holy water can harm them, and there's always a main vampire. Meanwhile, the school director does his own research and discovers that a vampire can only enter your house if you invite them in. But before he can read more, the Undertaker boy returns from the dead as a vampire and starts attacking him. Just when the boy is about to finish him off, the director yells, "I revoke my invitation," causing the boy to be immediately expelled from the house. The next morning, the morgue doctor asks if they've already done an autopsy on the Undertaker boy, and upon learning it hasn't been done, she decides to go down and do it herself, only to find that the boy's body has disappeared. She also receives news that other people in town have gone missing and some have been found cold as ice. The doctor heads to the director's house, finding him lying on the ground like a sack of potatoes. The director meets with the writer and Susan, and in the presence of the doctor, he reveals that he tried to buy white roses and garlic at local shops, but to his surprise, both were completely sold out because an elegant man had bought them all. Additionally, the doctor reveals that Ryan's mother had died under circumstances similar to her son's, so if they want to know what's happening, it would be a good idea to visit her at the morgue. Feeling like a total badass, Mark sets off alone to the Marston house, heading down to the basement where moments later the director also shows up to continue his investigation. Since his plan was logical from the start because they're actually dealing with vampires, Barlow's helper traps them both in the basement. While Mark searches for a way out, the main vampire appears and finishes off the director. Meanwhile, the writer, Susan, and the doctor go to the morgue to inspect Ryan's mother. As night falls, they realize that she doesn't seem to be coming back to life, so maybe she really did pass away from natural causes. But that's not true, as the woman starts moving, forcing the protagonist to think quickly. They make a cross out of 2 tongue depressors, but since they don't fix it properly, it falls apart and loses its effect, giving the woman enough time to attack and bite the doctor. Once they manage to reattach the wood, the woman turns to ashes. Fearing the worst, the doctor injects herself with a rabies vaccine, hoping it will counteract the bite, and for now, it seems to work, at least for the moment. The group then heads to the director's house, and seeing that Ryan and the Undertaker are hanging around, they conclude that the director has fallen into the hands of the vampires and won't be able to help. Despite being ready to be Barlow's next meal, Mark manages to escape, hide for a moment, and even takes down the vampire's servant, proving that the guy wasn't as strong as they thought. The team gathers at the church to tell the priest what's happening and to try to recruit him. But since he's a man of faith, he doesn't quite believe in these things. However, this is about to change when Mark triumphantly arrives, informing them that the vampires are real and that he managed to kill Barlow's servant, although the main vampire still remains. The group heads to the Marston house to find out what happened to the director, discovering that he has already turned into a vampire. With no other choice, they kindly take him down. After killing Matt, they escaped as the sun was about to set. They decided to call all their family members to seek refuge in the church, but when Susan arrives home, she realizes her mother is now Barlow's servant. Then, suddenly, Mike attacked her. The priest went to Mark's house, and by then, it was completely dark. At that moment, Barlow attacked Mark's parents. The priest fearlessly took out the cross and confronted Barlow. Mark ran away, but he heard the priest scream from behind. Ben, injured, reached the church with Susan, but seeing the cross inside, Susan became uncontrollable. She suddenly bit Ben and fled the church in fear of the cross. Ben chased her, but Susan disappeared into the darkness. Ben saw countless eyes shining all around. The vampires had surrounded him. He turned and ran back toward the church, but at that moment, the doctor saved Ben by trusting in the cross. She successfully brought him back to the church. They both waited until sunrise. On the way, they found little Mark, who was safe and hiding in the cabin. They set out to eliminate the evil. Ben noticed that there were no cars on the city streets, even during the day. They reached the drive-in theater where Ben saw Susan sleeping in the trunk, realizing that the car had become a coffin. As they began to clear out the vampires, the sky suddenly changed. The sun hid behind the projection screen, and under the giant shadow, the vampires began to move. As the vampires attacked Ben, little Mark jumped into a car, crashing into the projection screen and letting enough sunlight in to make the vampires scream and vanish. After defeating the vampires, they moved toward Barlow. Little Mark assumed Barlow would be in a coffin and spotted one inside a large truck. They dragged the coffin into the sunlight. Just as they were about to open it, darkness fell. Little Mark turned on all the car lights. Barlow then angrily attacked him, but Ben managed to kill Barlow. And with that, today's recap of the film called Salem's Lot comes to an end. If you found yourself living in a town slowly consumed by vampires, would you stay and fight, or escape before the darkness claims you too? Let me know, share your thoughts in the comments, hit like, subscribe to Jawa Recaps, and share this video with your friends who love a good scare.